This is the Plagmanrules Podcast. All right, ladies and gents, today is Friday. It's July 21st. And on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about a couple of really cool things here today. First of all, we're going to talk about the trailer for The Disaster Artist, which just premiered on Tuesday. We'll discuss that a little bit. We'll also talk about some of the things that have already been unveiled at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. We got a couple of news stories that have come out, and they're kind of interesting. So we'll talk about a couple of those. And then also, we've got a review. I went to see Dunkirk last night, and we'll review that. And that's all we'll have time for today, so we'll get into those topics now. Okay, first, the trailer for The Disaster Artist. Now, this is a movie, basically, if you're not in on this, there's this movie called The Room from the early 2000s. It's an awful movie. I mean, it's a movie that is so bad that you have to laugh at it because it's trying to be this serious drama, and it's about this guy whose fiance is cheating on him right before their wedding, and it's supposed to be the serious drama, but it's just the acting is so bad. The storyline is at times really floundering, and it's not convincing at all as a film. And Tommy Wiseau is the writer, director, producer, lead actor, and he's also an executive producer on the film. And he gives one of the worst performances ever as Johnny, the main character. And the movie is just so laughable with, some of the line delivery is terrible. Again, some of the execution sucks, and it's a movie, though, that you can't help but laugh at because it is so funny in the way that it's trying to be serious. And James Franco and crew, including Seth Rogen, including his brother Dave Franco, Alison Brie. Who else is in this movie? I mean, tons of people are in this movie. Josh Hutcherson's in it. You've got Bryan Cranston, who supposedly shows up in it. And there's supposed to be all these other cameos in it, too. This first preview, basically, it's just one scene from the movie. And it's the infamous scene where Johnny comes out onto the rooftop and says, "I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not." Oh, hi, Mark. And how it took 67 takes for Tommy Wiseau, who wrote the script, to memorize his lines. Oh my God. Yeah, but this guy, I mean, he was all coked out and stuff. He just absolutely was not right in the head when he made this movie. So yeah, the movie, The Disaster Artist, by the way, is following the making of the movie, The Room, and kind of the decisions and what happened behind the scenes and what led to one of the most infamous movies of all time. And this first preview really made me laugh and really made me smile. And, we just lost Martin Landau earlier this week, and this movie immediately reminded me of Ed Wood, which, of course, Martin Landau won his Oscar for, and it's about one of the worst filmmakers of all time, Ed Wood, and how, it kind of followed a couple of his films and how he made them and stuff and how what the reaction was and stuff. And The Disaster Artist looks like it's going to fit right into that mold. And James Franco is also the director on this, which I think is great symmetry because he's playing Tommy Wiseau, who was, did all the things on the original film. It premiered at South by Southwest back in March. Everybody there loved it. It's going to open in December, and it'll probably play at a couple of the film festivals here in the next few months. It's going to be from A24, who just won Best Picture with Moonlight. Hopefully they have another great movie like this. The Disaster Artist looks phenomenal. And this is a movie I might be a little biased because it's just, so personal with me because The Room is just such a fun watch, even though it's really bad. So when the movie comes out, it might be my favorite movie of the year just because I like that idea so much. Regardless, it looks great. This first preview has given us a really good first look at what the tone is, what the style is going to be, and I am really, really liking it. Okay, so Comic-Con started just a couple of days ago. We don't really have any of the big panels till this weekend. That's when we'll get some of the Warner Brothers stuff with maybe some DC announcements, maybe some more announcements like Steven Spielberg's going to be there for Ready Player One. Blade Runner 2049's panel's coming up, so we'll maybe figure out some more stuff about those projects. The Marvel stuff will be on Saturday. They might release this footage of the trailer, footage, whatever you want to call it, that they showed at D23 about Avengers Infinity War. We might discuss that a little bit more here in a second. But first of all, let's get into what they've done so far with Comic-Con. Well, first of all, Warner Brothers has made the announcement here before their panel started that Shazam is going to be the next DCEU movie that starts filming. Now, right now, they're finishing up Justice League. That'll be in theaters in November. They've got Aquaman on the docket, ready to go for December of 2018. So the first one after that is going to be Shazam. Now, this is Dwayne Johnson's attached. The guy who did Lights Out, David Sandberg, is going to be directing, which I'm really excited about him directing this. So yeah, that's kind of interesting that they're going to skip over stuff like Suicide Squad 2. They're going to skip over the Gotham City Sirens movie. The Batgirl thing might be pushed off to the side. The Batman with Matt Reeves and Ben Affleck. Wonder Woman 2 is going to be back there too. The Flash, we don't know when that's coming out yet. Are they still going to do that Cyborg movie? Is Green Lantern Corps still on the table? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting that all those other projects really got pushed off, and Shazam, which is not exactly the most well-known property from DC, is now going to be the next one they're going for. But then again, when they did Suicide Squad as their third movie, that was kind of interesting too. So they've done things like this in the past, and of course Marvel with their formula, they kind of take those C and D level characters like Doctor Strange and the Guardians of the Galaxy, and now they have big franchises now. So we'll see if that works with DC as well. There's a few other things that have happened here. One that caught my attention was the Kingsman, the Golden Circle stuff. Now, the first movie I saw, what was that, 2015 that came out, I thought, oh, it's a fun little movie, and I didn't know if it was necessarily going to get a sequel, and some people just went apeshit for it and just loved it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I liked it. I didn't think it was spectacular. As a matter of fact, I thought it was basically an R-rated version of Men in Black set in London. But now they have a sequel coming out, Kingsman, the Golden Circle, and Colin Firth is coming back, I guess, even though, yeah, what happens to him at the end of the first movie, I guess, doesn't matter anymore. Julianne Moore's the villain. She looks like she could be a really, really fun villain. Just from the tiny little snippets we've gotten, we've heard that she's going to be compared to, like, Martha Stewart on crack or something like that. Taron Egerton's coming back. Now, what's really interesting here, we've got, like, Channing Tatum in the cast, Halle Berry, Mark Strong's coming back, and we've got Jeff Bridges and Elton John in the movie. We haven't seen Elton John in anything yet, any of their promotional materials, so maybe he's like the Mark Hamill role in the first movie where he surprises you and he's just on screen for maybe 2 or 3 scenes, but I think it's kind of fun to have somebody like him in there. And I just got to see, it was just the Green Band trailer. I didn't see the Red Band. I don't know if the Red Band makes it any better or not, but it was also kind of weird to hear that they were actually like pouring tequila at the panel, and like Halle Berry had a bunch, I heard, and Channing Tatum had some too. That's kind of fun to do it like that and kind of mix it up a little bit. And for the people who are on the panels, who are answering questions, when you're not into it, it can make for a very boring time for the audience too, no matter what you're talking about. But, for them to mix it up like that, I thought that was kind of fun to hear about that. Also, we've got our first full trailer for Bright. We got our first look actually back at the Super Bowl. We got a little 20-second, 30-second little clip there. I don't know what to think about this. I mean, it's from David Ayer, who just did Suicide Squad, which was a piece of garbage movie. He's got Will Smith back in it. Joel Edgerton's in it as an orc, I guess. And this is basically like orcs and fairies and elves if they were in today's society, and there's a shot of Will Smith holding a sword. I'm like, what the hell is this? I couldn't get a read on what it's going for or anything like that. I couldn't really get a sense of what the story is besides the magic wand stuff. And serious, it's like magic wand. If it's not Harry Potter, I'm not really interested. So this is one, I mean, it's got a good director behind it, because even though David Ayer did direct Suicide Squad, he's made great movies. Like Fury is a fantastic movie. End of Watch is one of the best found footage movies, if you want to call it that, in a long time. I trust in him as a director, and I'm interested to see what he's going to do outside of DC now, but I don't know if this is necessarily a project I'm going to go to. Okay, and some kind of later news here now, that there is a Doctor Doom movie in development at 20th Century Fox, I guess in a way to kind of revamp their Fantastic Four ownage, if you get what I mean, like their ownership of the rights to Fantastic Four, because as we know, if you're in the know in this, that Marvel owns the Fantastic Four, but they kind of leased it out to Fox, and now Fox has to make a movie every so years, or have a thing in production X amount of years to hold the rights. So after Fantastic Four, the reboot from 2015 was a colossal failure, both with critics and at the box office. Now they're going to try a Doctor Doom movie to try to even things out. Now, I don't know. They've got Noah Hawley, who's behind Legion on FX, which I've heard is a great show. I don't watch too much TV, and that's one I haven't seen. So I don't know. I can't speak for that. I don't know. I'm kind of done with Fantastic Four, because those original movies from the early 2000s to mid 2000s weren't that great. This new one wasn't good either. So I think it's just time to let it rest. And Doctor Doom, I've heard as a character in the comic books from the original days, is a great villain, and they have to do him right. But if they don't do him right, then yeah, he looks like your standard villain. So I don't know. For me, I'm kind of done on this, so I could really care less. Okay, kind of the last thing we'll talk about here is the It footage. They had like a couple of clips and a kind of 2.5 minute trailer that they showed too. And supposedly this 2.5 minute trailer, which is not online yet, is supposed to come out here in the next week or two. So we might follow up on that when it finally comes out. But I've heard from a couple people, it's brutal. There's a part where Pennywise the clown is eating people, and he's eating a baby and then waving at people with a baby hand. Oh my god, wow. Now, I'm a really big fan of the Stephen King books. I haven't read it yet as a book, but I've got it on my shelf here. I'll read it eventually, but evidently this film is going to be, a one-part, two-part thing, and now Andy Muschietti, who's the director, has announced he is going to come back for the next part of it, which is going to be when these characters who are kids in the movie are now adults. So that's exciting to hear that he's not leaving it, that, things didn't work out or anything. That's good to hear. And I think especially when the movie comes out, it's only going to be out in less than 2 months now. Which sounds crazy because it sounded like it was so far away. But now, with it being so close, I'm starting to think this movie could punch a $50 million opening weekend. It could be a massive, massive film, especially for September. And, I mean, the trailer broke records for how many views it has, and I think it still has that record. Terrific trailer, really got me involved. And now the second trailer is going to be coming out here very soon, or third trailer, whatever it is. I've heard, the footage is going to be really shocking, but at the same time, really cool. So yeah, we'll look forward to that here, hopefully, in the next week or two. Okay, I'll quickly mention this, but there's this whole debate going on right now in a lot of the comic book fan and movie fan communities right now, because we had D23 last weekend, and they showed some exclusive footage there of Avengers Infinity War that was not put online. A lot of people immediately got pissed at this, but you have to remember, this is D23. Now, a couple of years ago, they had footage from Captain America Civil War, and it wasn't a trailer, it was like actual footage. A couple of scenes put together and spliced together. It wasn't really an appropriate thing to put out as a trailer. Evidently, from what I've heard from what's been described to me, it's kind of a similar deal with Avengers Infinity War, where it's exclusive footage and it's not really meant to be placed together and put together as a full trailer. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them if they're not comfortable showing it because maybe there's still some stuff they're working on it, and I didn't get any indications that things weren't finished, like special effects and everything that they showed. I'll tell you what, I'm willing to wait, because Avengers Infinity War, believe it or not, it's going to be here in about 10 months. We'll get our first preview before the end of the year, don't worry. It's not like we have to wait till April before we get our first images from the movie or anything. It's not like that. So, yeah, and then the other thing, too, D23 is supposed to be this exclusive thing. They don't allow photography there from the people who are attending. They don't allow video cameras there because they don't want anything leaked out. So it doesn't make sense for them to release it. Well, then the other side of the argument is, well, they had this behind-the-scenes featurette on Star Wars The Last Jedi, and they put that online. Okay, yeah, but at the same time, you have to think about it. Star Wars was at Comic-Con a couple of years ago, and I mean with The Force Awakens, and they had a behind-the-scenes featurette go up. Now, since Star Wars is reportedly not going to be at Comic-Con this year because D23 was just last week, that means that they can't put any footage up from Comic-Con. Now, maybe to replace that, that's what that featurette was for. And yeah, it's true that Avengers Infinity War will likely have a panel here on Saturday at Comic-Con for Marvel, and there's a chance that they do show that footage again to the Comic-Con audiences. It could happen. And then they release it online, or maybe they just leave it there. Who knows? But I'm fine with the wait. Because, time flies, guys, and the more you anticipate things, the slower it seems to go, I know. So just keep thinking, oh, it's so far away, oh, it's so far away. Boom, it'll be here before you know it, trust me. My thing is, I defend Disney with their choice not to release the footage online, because for all we know, it's not complete yet. Also, the way it's pieced together, it might not fit very well as a trailer. That happened last year with Warner Brothers with Justice League, because that first footage they showed last year was not really a trailer. That was exclusive footage. If you watch the video again, if you pull it up now on YouTube, it says this is exclusive footage. It does not announce itself as a trailer. And it's not meant to be a trailer, because all it is 2 scenes pieced together. Like 2 long conversation scenes put together is all it is. So if that's the way Infinity War the footage is, I might get a bad taste in my mouth. I might say, well, it's all over the place, or I might say that all these scenes are so pieced together and so long in some cases that it seems like they don't have anything ready to show. That might give off a false sense in that regard. In that way, yes, I'm fine with them not showing the footage at Comic-Con. I'm fine with them not releasing the footage after D23. I might be alone on that island. I know a lot of people are pissed, but patience, people, please. I know we're in an age of now, me, but for once in your life, shut up and just wait. Just wait your turn. It's not like that footage from D23 is not going to be in the movie and will never be shown again. The movie is coming out in 10 months. You're going to see that all in the theater when the movie plays. All right? Just get over it. That's enough of my soapbox speech on that one. And so far there are a few things that have been released at Comic-Con, but in a Monday show, we'll get into what else happened over the weekend. I'm sure we'll have some footage we'll talk about, maybe some footage that has been released too, that everybody can see. And I think it'll be fun to kind of talk about all that stuff on Monday. Okay, so last thing today is going to be a review of Dunkirk. So this is Christopher Nolan's new movie, opened last night. Here's my review. Christopher Nolan has become a director that everybody pays attention to. Regardless of how you felt about his more recent efforts like Interstellar or Inception or the Dark Knight trilogy, there's also been an attitude from certain moviegoers where if you don't love the movies this guy makes, there's something wrong with you, which I think is unfair. There's no such thing as a perfect director, but some of these crazed people will tell you otherwise. So people like me who were mixed on Interstellar were under fire for having an opinion on the movie that wasn't 100% positive. And I'm afraid, for the crazed fans' sake, the same will be true for Dunkirk. The film is very tense, and successfully puts you on the edge of your seat for every one of its 106 minutes. But there's things that I didn't like, and I need to go into those. The story, based on true events, follows many members of the British Armed Forces, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. There are also civilian boats called in. So there are nearly 400,000 men trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk, France, and now Churchill wants them off so they can join in the next battles. However, with the German armies coming in and air attacks almost constantly going on, the men are fish in a barrel as everybody tries to save themselves, and maybe some try to save their friends. I don't know how far I can go into describing the plot before I get into spoiler territory, because the trailers kind of give you a one-sided area where this happens, this happens, this happens, but that's about it. So as I mentioned before, the big strengths of this movie are the execution from Nolan in the tense sequences. In particular, the scenes of Tom Hardy as one of the Air Force pilots really work, and I root for that guy to shoot down all the German planes. Also go to the sequences where Mark Rylance is on screen. He is one of the civilian boaters called in to retrieve men from Dunkirk. His story and Hardy's story are involving and engaging and make you care for their survival and, by extension, the survival of the men they're saving. Also, we get to see good work from Kenneth Branagh's Admiral character. Though his scenes are very brief, he gives some of the wisest lines in the film. This is a war film, but there's no real battle scenes. There's bombing scenes, all of which are thrilling and get you tensed up, and Nolan uses this to his strength. It's more of a horror film, where the Germans with their bombs and snipers and soldiers and torpedoes are like slasher villains who can pop up at any moment and take lots of lives. I thought that was a great approach. Also good from the work is the crew. The cinematography is great. The film also has great work in the sound departments. The sound editing and mixing are great. And it's a good bet they'll both be nominated at this year's Oscars. Also, the score by usual collaborator Hans Zimmer is good, especially when the clock ticking is used. It reminds you that there's only so much time left before these men will be stranded on the beaches and forced to surrender to German troops, and time is of the essence. Now, let's get into those things that I didn't like. The jumbled storyline. Nolan chooses to spend one moment in one area, then cut to something else whose actions are happening at a separate time in a separate area. It just becomes difficult to tell where you are in time and space until about the last 15 minutes or so when things start to line up. Plus, if you really get into what's happening with one character or one storyline, it's difficult to get yanked out of it and back into another storyline that maybe you're not so involved in. Also, the story of the three main soldiers on the beach are not intriguing. The three men all look very similar, are all wearing almost identical clothing, and I just couldn't tell who was who. And therefore, I couldn't get as involved in them and as invested in them as other characters. It's kind of similar to how Ridley Scott made Black Hawk Down, where it's chaotic at times and impossible to figure out who the hell is doing whatever the hell it is they're doing. These type of war movies just aren't for me. There's also a character who's present with Mark Rylance who bumps into the three main soldiers at one point, but the dots are never connected as to how he started at one spot, then ended up stranded, and then ended up with Rylance on his boat. You know, come at me if you're one of those crazed fanboys who shout and yell and cause a ruckus if anybody says anything bad about a movie by this director. I'm not threatened by you. Dunkirk is a successful movie, and when it pops, it really pops, and makes for one of the best films from this director yet. But when it doesn't pop, it's always a pretty movie to look at, and that has to count for something. If you like Nolan as a filmmaker, you'll probably favor this, but if you're a traditional war film enthusiast, you'll probably be left cold by the bumbling storylines that jump around more than a sugar-high 6-year-old at a friend's birthday party where a trampoline is in the backyard calling their name. Still, I liked it. but I can't say anything beyond that. My rating is an 8 out of 10. Okay, so there's that review of Dunkirk. Yeah, it's good movie. I don't know. It's definitely not going to go down as my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. That's still Inception. And yeah, I was kind of mixed on it. Kind of like Interstellar. Between the two, I think this is better than Interstellar, but can't say much more to its credit than that. All right, guys. Well, before we leave today, just a couple of quick housekeeping items to keep in mind here. First of all, if you have any ideas or discussion points you want brought up on the Plagmanrules podcast, just leave a comment here on YouTube. Or you can also go to my Gmail account. That's plagmanrulespodcast@gmail.com. PLAGMANRULES podcast@gmail.com. You can leave any ideas that you think something that could help the show, something you like about the show, don't like about the show, go ahead and leave it there. Or any discussion points, something you want brought up, something that you think is worth talking about, go ahead and leave a comment here on YouTube, or again, you can use that Gmail account. All right, guys. Well, yeah, we'll talk about what else happened at Comic-Con on Monday. We'll go into any footage that was shown and all the rest of it there on Monday. I'm looking forward to see what happens here over the next couple of days. All right, guys. Until next time, this has been the Plagman Rules Podcast.